On July 11, 1995, Bosnian Serb forces under the command of General Ratko Mladic entered the town of Srebrenica. The people who lived there, mostly Muslim Bosniaks, had survived a siege for 3 years. A few hours before taking the town, Mladic had this to say.
Evo nas 11. jula 1995. godine u srpskoj Srebrenici. Uoči još jednog velikog praznika srpskoga poklanjamo srpskom narodu ovaj grad i napokon došao je trenutak da se posle bune protiv Dahija Turcima osvetimo na ovom prostoru.
And that's exactly what they did. Over the next few days, Mladic's soldiers committed the worst massacre in Europe since World War II. They killed 8,372 unarmed Bosniak men and boys and buried their bodies in mass graves in the forest around the village of Potocari near Srebrenica. Back in 1993, the United Nations Security Council had declared Srebrenica a demilitarized safe area. A Dutch peacekeeping force under the command of General Tom Karaman's was assigned to protect the area. But Serbian forces started shelling the safe area on July 6, 1995. 3 days later, they captured 55 Dutch peacekeepers. Tom Karaman's met Ratko Mladic on July 11 and said he was concerned about the safety of his soldiers. The Dutch general eventually agreed to hand over the 25,000 Bosniaks who had gone to a UN compound near the village of Potocari. They were there because they thought they would be safe. Karamans and his men were then allowed to walk free. Once that was done, the Bosnian Serb paramilitaries ordered women and children onto buses to relocate them. But the men and any boys older than 15 were forced to stay behind and were killed by Serbian forces. Others managed to escape. Thousands of Muslims ran into the woods in what became known as the Death March. It took them 5 days to reach the Bosniak-controlled city of Tuzla. Thousands died along the way because of Serb attacks and exhaustion. The Bosnian War finally ended with the Dayton Agreement in 1995, but on the 20th anniversary of the Srebrenica massacre, the dead are still being buried. So far, the remains of 6,377 people have been identified and reburied, but many are still missing or haven't been identified. Finding and identifying their remains is difficult work and requires DNA testing. And while that work goes on, every year Bosniaks commemorate the Death March by walking the same route, only in reverse, from Tuzla to Srebrenica. But they call it the Peace March. On July 11th, at the Srebrenica Genocide Memorial in Potocari, funerals were held for victims who had recently been identified. It was heartbreaking for many of the relatives who attended. 20 years after the massacre in Srebrenica, they're still burying the dead.